Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, my patrons, Clayton, Ruby, Stephanie, and Jonathan, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor or a student. 3 things on my list today. I'm headed into my grocery store, and headed in the opposite direction is a woman pushing a shopping cart with stuff in it and a child walking alongside the cart with her hand on the carriage. And I hear the mother, didn't really understand. I heard the mother say, "Watch where you're going." Because evidently the child had the hand on the cart. It wasn't necessarily watching where they were going, and they were headed between cars, and mother was watching out for child and said, "Watch where you're going." Why? To avoid mishap, right? To avoid injury, to not regret. Too many knots in there. It's tough to regret. It's after the math. It's after the fact when you regret what you could have done beforehand to avoid what you regret. And in this case, watch where you're going. Where am I going with this? I covered that. Why? Why does that matter? Because not only avoid injury, avoid survival. Look both ways when you cross the street. So because this broadcast is about how to survive as a Pilates instructor, the comparison that I'm making is that when you do Pilates, you have to watch where you're going. And the word that I would use instead of watch, right, would be observing. Observing has to be present. I mean, watch where you're going. That means now, in a way, right? It's just one way of saying it. But, and, not but, I would phrase that, bring your observing into your experience. Pay attention to what you're doing. Always keep your mind wholly concentrated on the purpose of the exercises as you perform them. This is vitally important for you to gain the results sought. Otherwise, there would be no valid reason for your interest in contrology. And so within the MMP point of view, being, thinking, and observing, the observing part is the watching part. And so when you do Pilates, you have to watch where you're going. You have to be observing. And if you don't watch, what happens? Why is a mother telling her kid that? To protect them and to help them learn how to protect themselves. And from the MMP point of view, my whole job is to coordinate their watching, observing, with their thinking and their being. And if you're not observing, then you're doing maybe complete coordination of body, mind, and whatever else. Maybe just body, mind, and more mind. or body, mind. Well, and see, if it's what you're thinking about as whatever spirit means on a philosophical basis, that's thinking. So that becomes just body, mind, and more mind. So in MMP, when you watch what you're doing, it's implicit that you're watching. It's implicit. It's assumed. It's necessary to be observing to get a coordination of that capacity with two others, being and thinking. And at least that's the point in MMP, is that the target is the experience you have, however brief it is, or however long you can stay in it, but to be completely coordinated in body, mind, and spirit. The reason that matters is because, just like the mom saying, watch where you're going, if you don't watch, you don't survive. And so it's a survival thing. Number 2, it's human nature to ignore human nature. To ignore its human nature. I don't think I said that right the first time. It's human nature to ignore its human nature. Meaning that, as a human, I want to believe that I'm going to live forever. And yet, my true nature is, I won't. At least, I think the true nature, maybe I made notes. The true nature. So the true nature of a human being is a water balloon with some sticks inside. The true nature of a human being is that they're made of water moving through air, carrying the load of themselves through that air. They're much heavy. They're not feather light. They're heavy. We're heavy. Humans are heavy. They're made of water. But to me, in a way, being human, you don't even consider yourself being mortal, let alone your circumstance of how heavy you are in space because of the difference in weight between what makes you up in your load and the space that you're moving through and around. Gravity is the great teacher. And it's a teacher because it sort of is what it is, and you learn off of its nature about your own. Just imagine in the year 3030, let's look ahead, right? See yourself as being one of just a few, probably, all the way through and up to the year 3032, 3030. Convenient number. to recognize how the body is capable, how the body not only is capable of, but it actually engages itself to move through space. See, my point of view is coordinate tension is there whether you like it or not, whether you admit it or not. You can be as stiff as a board, and yet the human being has evolved to be able to tap into core new tension as a means of facilitating the movement through space. By way of distributing the load of the body, how heavy it is, across the musculature capability within the body. And the idea that the more uniformly engaged you are, the lighter you are in space, because the more dynamic you can be. Now see, half of me wants to argue about a clinch and tension, like maybe just a squeeze. You know, is a clinch the same thing in terms of tension as dynamic tension, especially between endpoints? So I gotta tell Jonathan, remind Jonathan that to recognize opposition, to recognize oppositional rotation. So give you an axis. Okay, here's an axis, and there's where it's long. So here's my arm, and here's where it's long. So along that axis, say, and let's imagine it at the shoulders, right? Your shoulders engage in strength that way around that axis. So that's one direction of rotation that your body engages in. But when you hold that engagement and then allow your elbow to lift, you're effectively allowing oppositional rotation to exist along the same axis. So I don't call that core new tension, because core new tension is oppositional rotation between axes. You know, maybe it's just what it is. It's isometric tension. That's where I'm hearing Krista coming to that. But it's engaging in a rotation this way at the shoulders, that when you lift the elbow offers oppositional rotation to that. And then at the wrist, and again a reverse of rotation is capable in the body. So not only is there oppositional rotation going along the axis in the shoulder, for an example, at that axis, the body's capability is in creating oppositional rotation from endpoint to endpoint. Like my chiropractic teacher friend might say, from joint to joint, but maybe not quite really, because there are more joints than there are endpoints, I think. So it's a dynamic engagement. It's in the human being has evolved into this in terms of its capability, its range of motion, its expression, its limitations. I guess it all boils down to what point of view works for you, right? I'm all into trying to pull a curtain aside because I believe my job is to introduce you to core new tension, for one thing. But if you're Pilates interested, then it's the ideal that MMP believes is in there. In where? In Joe's original work. In his definition, his promise, and his sequence. That's all it takes to get to an experience. And MMP is just a narrow part of the spectrum of view of Pilates. But in that narrow point of view, it's crystal clear. It's like crystal, or that solid plastic that they embed things in that'll hold weight. The point of view will hold weight. I think it matters that you acknowledge the physics that the human being struggles to survive in, and the biomechanics going on within the body, the only part of which I care about is the recognition of core new tension between axes. And that it's through core new tension that we get to uniform engagement, where we're most efficient in bearing the load of our body moving through space, or standing, or sitting, doing anything other than just being at ease, other than being a water balloon cupped by or resting on whatever is around it. The trick as a human being is that we're water balloons that are very sophisticated in our ability to move through space. And if you listen to this, you've been introduced to a point of view of biomechanics. That's what CT is. Core new tension is biomechanics. That goes a long way in helping you carry your load through space, as well as line up. And number 3, Pilates and Dune. Am I really going to talk about that? So, I used to bug somebody, or it used to be a thing actually, between people that had read the novel by Frank Herbert called Dune, and those that hadn't, to the point where it just became a meme of a question is, have you read Dune? And since then a movie has come out that gives a faint glimmer to the reality one can inject oneself into when one reads the book. And my title today is Pilates and Dune, because, well, for a lot of reasons, and one of the most blaringly apparent in Dune is the presence of the Bene Gesserit, which is a group of individuals, human beings, defined, among other things, by gender. Okay. And then within the novel Dune, there are different families, each distinguished, I think, because they have atomic weapons at their ability, but they have families, and in that regard, to Pilates, that's like lineages, right? In Dune, there's an emperor, but in Pilates, there really isn't one. So you have groups, however they're defined as by gender or by nuclear capability or by some other way, all seeking influence and power and thereby control, right? Or trying to control as much as they can of whatever they can. Sort of human nature as well. And so in the novel Dune, what's precious is the spice because it allows for moving long distances in short amount of time. Interesting, right? I guess from the point of view I'm portraying, the spice in Pilates is the experience, is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit as a state of being in the body in the moment of the doing. That's the spice, and everybody wants control of that. And so, a strategic weapon that the hero comes to use is one based on sound and vibration, frequency, resonance, got your attention on that, and that through the use of these new weapons that are like audio bullets or guns, I guess, that fire audio bullets, they end up exerting their power and being able to win the war with everybody else. To the point that in the culminating scene, the device that was being used wasn't even necessary by the hero, just by his own voice. He could make a disruptive frequency that had impact. So where am I going with this? The key thing to learn about the MMP point of view is that it places the student, each and every student, in the role of the hero because it's their ability to achieve the effect on their own without any device is what matters. It's the demonstration of control. It's the demonstration of being able to resonate from within yourself to carry the impact or project the impact of that energy. Produced by a frequency. Oh, Tesla wants to come rushing in and saying, see, I told you, I tell you. And it's in, where's my thing? It's in creating tension. It's in creating tension between 2 points that it's in having 2 points and to make it really straight, to stretch it. So from the MMP point of view, the control that manifests within the hero in Dune is the same control any practitioner of Pilates accomplishes in their effort, in their dive into their interest in coordinating their being, thinking, and observing. In so doing, right, is a frequency of its own. It's a participation in the frequency that's already there. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. So, my point to this is that Pilates is a gift from one human to humanity. Each of us individually. Because it's the empowerment of reaching for and having moments of complete coordination of being, thinking, and observing. And that's assuming the pursuit of Pilates in the choreography of the mat, however distant. Muted and mutilated came to my mind at the same time, but however distant from the clarity of the resonance within the original work. Know what you know. And then try to be tolerant of a world that doesn't want to. Even though life can't live forever. It's up to you to read between the lines and see behind the curtain. Add two and two after you've evaluated points of view. Direct your thinking.